Welcome to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. Quickly jumping in before Mel has time to finish her notes.
Thanks.
This is a 10-minute Tuesday, so it's got to be faster. Got to be quick. We got to be on the ball, and this is actually the second time we're recording it. We're going to do it a little bit quicker this time because the microphone wasn't plugged in. First time that's happened. I'm actually surprised that I haven't screwed up the tech more on the podcast.
I know, it's been pretty smooth, but that was a really disappointing realization this morning.
Incredibly busy day. And this leads us into today's topic, but incredibly busy day. So much going on with a lot of our different family management, job management, podcast management, just everything going on at once. And then to have the podcast fail this morning when we tried to record could have made us emotional and sad. Made you a little bit sad, though.
I was a little stressed before, but now I feel much better. Just got to move on. And
today's episode is on how controlling emotion affects all of your family's outcomes. When we get asked things like, hey, how do you handle this disciplinary issue? What do you say when the kid says this? An overall theme is to be able to lower the emotion to solve the problem more logically. It is a skill that's trained, though, because at the beginning, we didn't have that. It came from a louder household, is a nice way to say, and it's not that they're yelling at us. It was just a lot of stress, and sometimes it would boil over, and it would get loud and too emotional in certain situations. And Mel's story is a little bit different.
I didn't grow up in a loud family, certainly, but I think if you keep the how do you say, the blood pressure low? Lowest heart rate in the room.
Yeah, lowest heart rate in the room. That's the saying that goes through my head.
So much more can be accomplished, and you don't get stuck on just getting angry and being reactive.
And this is a trained skill. So the point of the podcast today is to help you work through stressful times, because working through it will teach you the skills and mindset to handle it the next time it comes up. Mel took the kids to Costco today. Not always the lowest stress situation. Especially at the beginning, you're trying to get everything done. You're thinking about the list. You're thinking about the time of day. It's going to get so busy soon. You're thinking about all the things you need to do, plus throw in 3 children in a cart.
And normally I'm so used to going by myself because obviously they'll be in school, and I purposefully go run the errands when they're in school. And even if I go during the day, Costco's just always busy. And Henry will do this funny thing where he wants to hold the cart. And I have this thing when I go to a store, I like to push the cart. I feel like I am in control of where we're going, what we're doing. But I just, sometimes he'll jokingly grab it, and then I'm just like, fine, you go with it. But he noticed that I was a little extra stressed at Costco. And this is one of the points is kids will oftentimes point out to you like, hey, you seem like you're a little off here. Although I do think we've created that culture of tough truths in our family where they can mention it. And I thought it was important, first of all, to acknowledge he was right. I was feeling stressed out. And to explain to him, I'm adjusting to having you guys all with me now that it's summertime. But the whole point I'm trying to make here is that I didn't immediately just get angry with him and say, forget it. I'm just going to take the cart and go do my thing and get all emotional. I was able to slow down because we've practiced this skill, explain to him that he was right, and then just take a deep breath and explain a little bit of why I was stressed out and then move on. And we ended up having a great outing. But I think it was important for me to hear what he was saying, admit it, and not let myself escalate to some place of high stress and then irrationality.
This is very memorable for children. I remember some of the times where things boil over from stress. And ironically, you forget some of the good times, which stinks. But as a parent, you can really blow it when you act irrational around the kids, because it'll teach them to clam up, shut down, and that you can explode at any time, even though they don't really understand why. I was at one of Henry's soccer games a few weeks ago, and I was walking to the bathroom because I drank tons of water. I got to walk to the bathroom 5 times during these games. I don't know how no other parent ever has to go to the bathroom.
You drink crazy amounts.
And this mother was leaving with 2 kids, and she's on her phone, and the kid says, oh, hey, are we going to the car, Becca? And then she took a fake swipe at him. Don't you ever call me by my first name? And it exploded at this kid. I could see him shrink down. I don't know what's going on. It's not really a judgment on her as a person. It's a judgment on the action. And that's a very different thing, because she could have tons of stress in her life. I don't know what she was messaging about. Could be a family member that passed away. There could have been a lot of external stress on her at that time. Kid probably doesn't know that. And by swiping, and I don't remember the verbiage, but she said something very loud at him that was included a fake cuss word, but she just didn't say that. And jumped it was something that looked impactful in the young man, and something that she probably had other stress that she allowed to boil over into that situation. And had she been able to lower the emotions, it could have been a more positive outcome in that instance.
And we've talked previously on the podcast about how we like to take every situation and try to make it into an opportunity. Here's a chance that she could have taught her kid something about how to handle a situation like that. Or, hey, I'm dealing with something stressful right now. I don't know what her son's name was. Can you just give me a minute? Having a different tool in your toolbox of how to handle those situations, and that kid could have walked away from it being like, hey, if I get stressed out and someone gets in my way, I can then say, hey, I need a minute, instead of how she jumped down his throat. So I love looking at things as situations to learn and role modeling for kids.
These are these are skills, not traits you're born with. These are skills you develop. And I want this podcast to serve as a reinforcement tool that when you get through something stressful, the next time it comes up, you'll be able to handle it better. And not even that specific situation, but stress in general, emotions in general. I received a very kind compliment from a friend of mine via text. It was like, hey, I really appreciate how you just are. Like, you just have found some sort of peace and just are, and think about situations and don't let the heart rate get jacked up. It was not always like that. In 2016, I distinctively remember being in a business group where I was a young business person, and I had to say something in front of the group. It was only like 12 or 13 people, not a big group. But while I was getting ready for it, I was so nervous and stressed out. I felt like my throat was closing. Like, I couldn't talk in my normal pitch. I could just talk like in a robot voice. When I finally got up there and toughed it out and got through it, man, the anxiety was high, adrenaline was high, my eyes were all like wide and crazy. I just was not skilled in handling that situation. And now I do public speaking all the time, speak in front of large gatherings at least every 90 days, and sometimes even more than that. It does spill over to other parts of your life as well, and it is a great skill to have. I'll give you an example from just the other day. My brother and I were going for a walk during lunchtime. He'll come over, he'll do some of his job, I'll do my work. We'll get together at noon, we'll go for a little ruck at lunch for about 45 minutes with some weight vests on or some packs to get a little exercise in, get outdoors a little bit. When we were out for the walk, we're going down this hill, and we see this large dog come barking around the corner at us. It's great Pyrenees.
Giant Pyrenees, something like that.
It's about 150 to 200 pound dog, huge, intimidating, bark and all that. It comes running around the corner. I should say jogging around the corner. It wasn't like full sprint to give the story justice, but it was loud. It's barking. It's acting pretty aggressively. And then another one comes around the corner. We're like, oh man, there's two huge dogs coming at us. No owner in sight. So my brother picks up a stick to create some distance between him and the dog as it gets approached, just hold it out. The owner comes around the corner, maybe 20 yards behind the dogs, and we yell, hey, call your dogs. And he yells, what? I'm hard of hearing. What do you want? And my brother yells, call your dogs, like loudly. And this upsets him. And he comes running up to us. I should say power waddling up to us. The reason why I say that is because I'm just there. I'm evaluating the situation. He was unathletic in how he moved, is my point. And he comes right up, chest to chest. We're just standing there. We didn't move one step from the dogs. We were just hoping they would go away, but we didn't want to turn our backs and run in case the dogs were to attack us from behind. And he runs up, and the dogs are barking around us. He gets chest to chest. I see that this is Monday at noon. I see that he's got an open Budweiser can in his hand, one hand. His other hand is clenched like a fist. Over his shoulder is like a lunch bag that has probably what started as a 6-pack of Budweiser, I can assume, that's now a few empty. He's right up. What do you want, tough guy? Who's the tough guy here? Like, I feel his hot, stink beer breath on my face. His dogs are barking around us. He has his fist clenched, looking for an aggressive action. And I had no emotion about the situation. I simply put my thumbs, our weight vest go around the front, like it looks almost like a bulletproof vest you'd see in a movie. There's weight plates on both sides, almost like suspenders. I just kind of hook my thumbs up there, so I have my hands up in front, closer to my face, in case I need to defend myself with no real intention of being aggressive. He's chest popped out, spitting when he talks, nasty beer spit everywhere, and just enraged. And I say, hey, you have to have your dogs on a leash in this town, which is true. I checked. I had checked prior because there's some issues with other dogs I share on the podcast. I get bit by a dog when we were out on a walk. And this guy's out, open container, drunk, Monday at noon, 2 large, aggressive dogs, and acting aggressively himself. And I'm just sitting there thinking about all the ways that this could play out. Now, he's right up against us. We're fairly shoulder to shoulder. He's right there. So I shift my weight back to create a little distance, not an aggressive stance, just keep my hands loose and open, just like they're hooked on my vest. I'm not putting them up like I'm going to fight. I'm just thinking like, all right, maybe I should drop this guy. Not very athletic, but then I thought, he's drunk at noon on a Monday. How sad must his life be that he has to go home to? And then I thought, I don't want any aggression. I know enough about fighting to now know that the best way to get through a fight is to not have it. Just to try not to have it as best as possible. I have no ego. I need to beat this drunk guy up. Like it means nothing to me in terms of manhood, or am I a wimp if I walk away? It's irrelevant. Don't care. So I'm thinking, all right, I've got this thought in my head. Hey, let's not get in this fight. That is what we've been learned. That's what we've taught. Like I'm not, even though he's up and very aggressive, I am not feeling like he's going to be able to harm me, even with his best shot. He's so close that he couldn't even get a swing if he wanted to. I'm not even sure what was going through his mind other than just white rage, couldn't control his emotions. And I think, well, what if next time it's not me and my brother? What if it's a mom walking a small child and his dogs come up and bite that child? Would I feel guilty that I didn't handle the situation now? And then I would go back like, what if I do strike him and he goes down, maybe he'll hit his head and there would be some severe damage. Like this is not a physical match. It would have been very almost dangerous to get into it with him because he was that much physically weaker seeming and drunk and out of breath from running 20 yards. Like it wouldn't have been right in my mind. Then again, he's out there often, and I'm going to have to probably deal with that again. I'm just going back and forth, just hanging out in the situation while he's like panting and totally lost emotional control and like waiting for me to react in some way. And I'm just not. I don't have angry eyes. I don't have angry hands. My stance isn't angry. I'm not even trying to fight off anger. I'm just there and completely in control of what I think the outcome would be of the situation. Now, you can't ever know. He could have been armed. He could have grabbed me and then his dogs attack as well, because there's really him and 2 vicious dogs. And so there's just too many unknowns. And I'm like, it just isn't worth it. Eventually the story culminates after I'm standing there for probably 30, 40 seconds while he's panting and yelling at us. I'm just daydreaming about what to do next. A car comes by and creates some separation, and we to walk on as he walks away to talk to the driver of the car. And the reason why I tell that whole story is that this is a skill that's developed not just in those type of situations, but in any stressful situation, from road rage to parenting to going to Costco. These increase your skills and your ability to handle your own emotions. The flip side of that is to put in the work to be confident, be as good of a parent that you can give your child advice once you calm down, to know in a confrontation like I'm explaining about that you've learned the skills that you could handle yourself. All those things I learned is going through my head you learn so much about fighting. The goal is to not fight, and you get physically strong to not have to use it. And so just knowing and training those skills can improve your outcomes in a significant way.
And what I pull from that really is being aware, first of all, that this is a skill that needs to be worked on. Being aware of how you react. So are you the kind of person that when something happens, you are very quick to react? Are you impulsive? Do you see that in your kids? So this is a very important thing to role model and teach kids. So some kids are just naturally calmer. Some kids are naturally more impulsive. And I think as parents, it's our job to help our kids understand their reactions. So one of our kids was more impulsive. He'd struggle in elementary school with getting really angry very easily at situations. And we did work on this with him. So one of the first steps was helping him recognize, hey, how do you know that you're about to have a meltdown? Is your face getting red? Do you clench your hands? And you were mentioning some of these things in this adult man too. And so first of all, having that awareness, and you really want to bring the time between when something happens that upsets you and the time you react, you want that to extend. And Joe beautifully explained what was going on in his mind during that time. Someone else could have just punched the guy right away. You were thinking about it. And I bring this up because I always want to bring it back to the family and how us learning this skill, role models for the kids. So me explaining to Henry the other day why I was stressed in the store, or we went to a different store and my other son really wanted to buy this watch and he was getting real flustered that I told him he couldn't have it. I'm like, we're not here for that purpose. We're just here to buy a sleeping bag or whatever we were there for. And he got a little red in the face. His voice went up and he was frustrated. But he put it away and then I walked away because I know him well enough now where if I just give him a little time, he will settle down. And then maybe 10 minutes later, we're in the checkout line buying the stuff we came for. And he comes over to me and apologizes for how he reacted. And I bring this up because it's such a important step forward for him that he was able to control himself. He recognized that he should have handled it even better than he did. And then he was willing to be accountable and apologize, which is one of our family values. That's very important. So it's important to be able to recognize these things in ourselves, work on it, recognize them in our kids, and help them understand. Kids have to be taught about feelings and how to manage them. And it brings me a lot of joy that I see progress in that way with my son.
And out of all the stories, I think there's a couple of tactics in here. One which Mel mentioned earlier, which is, hey, I just need a minute. The best way to get through an emotional situation, whether it's a potential physical confrontation or anything else, is to create some separation, detach, de-escalate, and then think about it. And then address it. And sometimes one of the worst things one of the worst worries kids have, I shouldn't say that. One of the ways to make a kid nervous about their behavior is to say, hey, we're going to talk about this later. And they're like, oh, wow, I shouldn't have done that. And then later, so you have a serious conversation about it. It's not like you're going to yell later or escalate it again later, but to give space in your mind to think about what to do and in their mind to think about, oops, what did I just do to warrant that? And that takes down the stubbornness and it takes down the ego in a situation that has some friction to it.
And it helps you to think more clearly. And in the end, if you do bring that separation, even if it's like time or just like body separation, I think you'll be happier with the outcome. Another thing that I like to say to the kids is, I need to think about that. And they don't always like that because they want it handled right now. They're like, let's deal with it right now because it's uncomfortable to sit. So I need to think about that, or I need to talk to Dad about that. They love that one. It just creates a separation. And literally, sometimes I need to think about it. I'm not great in the moment with consequences. So I like to step back and think about it. It's okay to do that.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. If it gave you some perspective, please reciprocate by dropping us a 5-star review, dropping us a written comment, dropping us an email, or reach out to us on Instagram, which is all in the show notes, on any topic you'd like us to cover, any questions that you have. Talk to you on the next episode.